keeping things moving along, let's access the Speed Force to the Flash news. That's right, folks. This is not an elaborate prank. The Flash movie is allegedly actually happening. It's a real thing, at least according to DC Fandom. So during a fast-paced panel, star Ezra Miller was joined by director Andy Muschietti and writer Christina Hodson and producer Barbara Muschietti to run through a bit of Flash history. They teased the upcoming film and showed some concept art that showcases the Flash's new suit as designed by Bruce Wayne, as well as a shot of the Flash and what is clearly Michael Keaton's Batman standing together. So this has the internet, a Twitter, ablaze with speculation. What do you hope to see from this movie, and what are your thoughts on them adapting Flashpoint and leaning into this idea of a DC multiverse? Joshua, let's start with you.
Oh my God, I could do a whole just hour on just this, but I'll try to keep it to just the highlights. It is like crazy and wild that they're doing two Batmans that we know of so far are going to be in this movie. But I think it's crazy how like we're getting our first ever Flash movie, but the whole conversation has been dominated by Batmans. So I feel like it's almost like I feel that feels weird, right? I feel like I want to know a little bit more about what's Barry Allen going to be up to in this movie about Barry Allen, and people aren't caring that much about the Flash of it all. And it's also weird to do Flashpoint because what makes Flashpoint a great story is that you already have the baseline and you understand Flash's world. And then you turn everything upside down and you have characters who are different than they are in Barry's original world. But we don't really get that because we haven't really had a Barry Allen movie. I always thought Flashpoint would make a great sequel. The most we've had of Barry Allen is just the little snippets we've gotten in the Justice League, which don't feel like a full meal, like to actually get to know the character. So that's something that is a big question mark for me. I don't know how they're going to handle. But the fact that we are getting this movie like in the first place, I do think is awesome. But in fact, like what is it going to do? And like what is it going to leave us with? At the end of the day, if Ben Affleck he is in this movie. If he comes to this movie, he let's say he gives a great performance as Batman. Are we going to want more? Is he going to return to the role? We already have Robert Pattinson as a Batman, but that's in another universe. So then is it okay for Ben Affleck to come back? I don't know. But also I could see Ben Affleck signing up for this, kind of like Han Solo signing up for Harrison Ford, Harrison Ford coming back for The Force Awakens to kill off Han Solo. I think Ben Affleck might be coming back just to say goodbye to the character, and he's not going to make it out of it alive.
See, you just accessed the Speed Force for that answer, and I think you hit the nail on the head there because, like, the Flash is a character that, by his nature, moves very quickly, but you also don't want to rush his narrative because we haven't really had that movie, as you mentioned, establishing Barry Allen. We've only had these like little glimpses of him as this kind of like dose of humor in that world, and one that is like sorely needed. So I'm curious as well because a lot of people are drawing the comparison of Flash and Batman, with Batman making this suit for Flash in the same sort of mentor-mentee relationship between Spider-Man and Iron Man and the MCU. So Sabrina, how do you think this is going to differ from what we've already seen in those movies?
I just think we have two completely different characters. I think our Batman that we have with Ben Affleck is very grizzled, and he's very kind of over all of this that he has to deal with. And I just don't think we're going to have that type of dynamic that we have with Tony, the kind of father-son relationship with Tony and Tom Holland Spider-Man. I think it's going to be more of like an actual team up rather than like we're partners, rather than I'm more of a mentor and you're a mentee. And like in Muschietti, I trust. I loved what he did with It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, and he's able to take this huge, dense novel and turn it into something spectacular. And I just think with a story like this, with all the characters that we have already, I think he's really going to find a way to flesh it out and make it a nice, cohesive narrative that we're all going to enjoy. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I will say the way he was able to handle the cast of It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 really gives me faith that he's able to inject a lot of heart and an emotional core to this story. But I'm also excited because, we have these characters and these actors who are so good at what they do, obviously, with the news that Michael Keaton's going to be returning and that piece of concept art that showcases Barry Allen and Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne together. So, Amy, my question for you is, do you think that this is going to take place in the 1989 Burtonverse or present-day Burtonverse? Also, is there other parts of the DC multiverse you'd like to see cross over into this movie?
Oh, yes. I I would not mind at all if we get little glimpses of a million corners of the DC universe. I know we just did it with Crisis, but it was delightful. So I am very interested. I mean, I guess depending on how long the glimpse is, you're probably much better off doing a Batman 89 pulled up to the present, because I would like to see Michael Keaton looking like Michael Keaton and not, hiding behind something, pretending to be 20, whatever. So I hope that that's carried forward. If they want to do a whole Batman Beyond thing there, I'm not going to stop them. I share the surprise that we're doing Flashpoint for the first Flash movie. It's a strange decision. So for the first time in my nerd life, I think I'm ready to say it's cool with me if you're just using that title and kind of improvising everything else around it. It doesn't need to look much like the comics, because we don't really have the same grounding for the versions of the things they did in the comics. And I don't want to spoil the comics, but 2 Bruce Waynes is 2 more Bruce Waynes than I would expect to find in a Flashpoint movie. So there's a lot of questions. I like Christina Hodson. I loved the Birds of Prey movie. So I was interested to hear what they're doing. It surprises me we're starting there. But as everyone will remind us, we still have a Grant Gustin Flash out there. We have lots of options for these storytelling, which for me takes the pressure off this needing to be the one and only Barry Allen story.
Exactly.
That was too much answer, sorry.
No, that's perfect. I mean, that many Bruce Waynes, it's Crisis on Chinfinite Earths. Like, it's just going to be like strong jawline after strong jawline. And I'm okay with them kind of using Flashpoint as a jumping off point, because that is a storyline that is so beloved and adapted so many times. And you want to see them do it justice, but not just do the same thing that we've already seen. I think they can use the general conceit of it to do something really fun. Because since we haven't had this kind of establishing point, we're like, wait, your mother was murdered? I thought Batman had the murdered mother. Were you trying to save his mom, maybe? I don't know what's going to happen here. Maybe he'll try to save Martha, and that's going to set off this chain of events instead. And that's why there's so many different Bruces this time around.